So hopefully you've received your Zoom invitation and you've done one of two things. If you had a Zoom account before tied to the email account you received the invitation at, that Zoom account has converted from basic to what they'll call licensed. If you didn't have a Zoom account with that email account, it's activated one for you. And you could have done it in a couple of different ways. You could tell it you're going to log in with your email address, or you could tell it you're going to log in using your Gmail Google account. I'm going to go ahead and sign out of my Zoom. So when you go into Zoom the first time, you're going to see this. If you just told it to activate the Zoom account under your Google account, your Gmail, you can just hit Google and it will log in. If you told it you want to use your email address and a password, then this is where you would put that in. So I'm going to go ahead and put in password for this account. And once you're in, you'll see effectively this. You might not have as many icons across the top, probably won't have phone, but you'll have home, chat, meetings, contacts, and apps. You'll also have these four major buttons: new meeting, join, schedule, share screen. And in the top right, if you click, you'll see that you are licensed. It should say licensed there, the email address you're using, how you get into various settings, and also just below there, the settings gear if you wanted to go straight in to settings. We're going to go through some of this first, and then we'll jump into actually having a meeting. So first thing, in life size, you had two options. You had your personal meeting space that was yours, a meeting number that was yours that you could always use, and then you had meeting rooms. In Zoom, you have effectively the same thing. Under new meeting, right next to the words new meeting, is this little down caret. If you hit that, you'll see that one of the options, which is probably not currently checked on your screen, is use my personal meeting ID, and then it gives you a personal meeting ID. I'm going to suggest you check that box. Once you check it, it stays checked for forever. And what that means is anytime you hit new meeting with this orange button, it's going to start a meeting using that personal ID. That's what you would give out to people for friends, family, close associates to come meet with you, as opposed to one of those meeting rooms for a committee or a board or a council or something like that. This is your personal space, just like your personal life-size space. Once I hit that little down caret, I go down here to the ID and I copy the invitation. That's going to put on my clipboard the invitation that I would then mail to people. So if I do this, here's that invitation that I can mail to people. Carmelite Media's Zoom meeting, the link they would click, the meeting ID and password if they needed it, phone numbers, all that kind of stuff. So in here, if you want to invite someone to your personal meeting room, that's where you would go. You would go copy the invitation from here and send it to them. Then you would start this meeting and they would click the link, which would get them into that room. Up under settings, a couple things you might want to do before you have your first meeting. If you want to use Zoom all the time, then you're going to check this Start Zoom when I start Windows. That's fine. So it's always loaded. So if someone tries to reach you, your computer will ring or ding or whatever you have it set to. Use dual monitors if you have more than one monitor. What that will do is put the gallery view on one screen, and if somebody's giving a presentation or there's a speaker, they'll pop up full screen on the other screen. So that's up to you if you'd like to use that. Under video, typically you'll only have one option. Now mine is not showing anything because I'm using my camera to talk to you now in a different program. But if you had more than one camera, you could pick whichever one you wanted here and verify that it was working properly. And under audio, it's going to assume your default speakers and microphone. And here you can test them to make sure that your speakers are working. You would hit this, it would make a sound. To make sure your microphone is working, you could hit this. You would say something, it would record it, it would play it back to you. The rest of these we could go through if you'd like one-on-one, if you want to go through more options, or maybe I'll do another video later. But really, those are the basic things you'll need to know. We've talked about individual meetings, your little private rooms. If you want to set up meeting rooms for events, for instance, I have ones here set up for the How to Engage Generation Z virtual conference. the week of the 15th through 19th, and then the 22nd through 26th. If you want to set those up, permanent meeting spaces, you would go to meetings, move from home to meetings, hit this little plus sign. That's how you schedule a new meeting, and do schedule a meeting. Even if this is going to be a recurring meeting, you're going to do schedule a meeting. You would name it whatever you want to name it. I'm going to call this test meeting. You can pick a particular date and time and duration, and if you do that, then this will be a one-time use meeting. You will launch it, people will connect, you will have your meeting. When you close the meeting down, the meeting goes away. If this is something you want to use ongoing for a board or a commission or a council or anything like that, you're going to check this recurring meeting box, and you'll notice the date and the time have gone away. That means that this meeting will be perpetual. You can start it, have people come in, have a meeting, get out of it, the meeting will still be there. You can then start it again, have a meeting, get out of it, go back, the meeting will still be there. So this will be very similar to the meeting rooms that we had set up in Life Size that you all used for committee meetings and other parish meetings and this sort of thing. The next thing you have is generate automatically or use your personal meeting ID. Now again, that personal meeting ID is your personal ID. So generally you're not going to want to use that for these type of meeting things. So you're going to leave that on generate automatically. It'll automatically make one up, and we'll get that later. Passcode, once people have that meeting link, that once they get to the meeting to connect, they have to put in a passcode. This is just a security feature to prevent what was termed drive-bys, people dropping into meetings without having been invited. So you can create a passcode. You can make this anything, alphanumeric. Another thing that's been created is the waiting room, because when you send a link, that link has the meeting ID and the passcode in it. So if somebody gets that link, they can still get in. What the waiting room does is, even if they have the meeting ID and the passcode, they go into a separate space alone. And you'll see this later when we're in a meeting, but when you're sitting in the meeting, you'll see people pop into your external waiting room, and you have to admit them. You have to specifically, intentionally admit them in. Generally, you're probably not going to use this for your general everyday meetings. We do it for things like virtual seminars and webinars, because sometimes the tech team and the speakers are doing prep in the event, and they don't want the guests to come in until they're ready for them. So they want the guests to be able to connect, but then sit in that waiting room and wait. You're not going to want to use only authenticated users can join, because then every user attending your meeting has to have a Zoom account, even if it's just a free basic one. The next things, host and participant video. If when you enter this meeting, your camera will be on, and if when your participants enter this meeting, their camera is forced on. Up to you. Typically, you'll leave those off. You'll turn on your camera when you're ready. They'll turn on their camera when they're ready. Audio, telephone, computer, or both. Generally, you're going to leave that on both. It means that they can listen and speak and engage through their computer, microphone, and speakers, or if they're having any problem, they can also call in with that list of phone numbers that's always available. Generally, leave that on both. Calendar, for now, I'm going to say leave that on other. If you want to look into the scheduling features and calendaring features, we can do that at another time. And then advanced options. Now, we also have an interpretation feature. That's if you're going to have live translators speaking in your meetings. Again, something we would cover in another session. But you may see that down there. I don't know if only I see that as the admin or if you would see that as well. But under advanced options, you have allow participants to join anytime, mute upon entry, automatically record, approve or block, and then alternate hosts. Now the allow participants to join anytime we'll come back to, because that has to do with the alternative hosts down below. Mute participants upon entry. Sometimes, again, if you have a webinar or a conference, you're going to want that. Typically for your meetings, just like you're not going to want the waiting room, you're not going to want mute participants upon entry. You're going to want the people to come in and be ready for the meeting and not have to deal with unmuting themselves. Automatically record, up to you. You can set it to automatically record the moment that the meeting launches so that you don't forget to hit record. It will announce that the meeting is recorded. It will re-announce that for every new person that joins the meeting. So everybody will know it is being recorded, so you don't have to worry that somebody's unaware. Or you can wait till people are in and then you can hit record. That way, if you have things to discuss before the meeting, you can do that, get all set up, and then hit record when the meeting actually starts. Again, it will announce that to everyone. Approve or block entry of users from specific countries and regions. I'm going to say ignore that one. You're not going to use that one. So now what we have left are allow participants to join anytime and alternative hosts. These are going to be important for those of you who had me set up meeting spaces where committees or groups within your parish or school or organization could meet, but you didn't need to attend. Every Zoom meeting has to have a host, unlike Life Size, where we could set up a space and let everybody go in, and we didn't have to declare ahead of time who was going to be in charge. In Zoom, you do. You have to define this. So what you do if you're creating this meeting space for another group, and either you're not sure if you're going to be able to attend, or you don't intend to attend, or you just want to have someone else be the host beside you, that kind of thing, you can allow participants to join at any time, which lets them get in before you are there. Now, again, you probably wouldn't want a waiting room for this because you want people to be able to come in. And then in the alternative host, you would put the email address of the person who's going to be the host for the meeting. Now, that person has to have at least a basic free account. They have to be registered with Zoom. So you could put in here bobsmith@carmelnet.org or whatever their email address is. When you do that, it means that Zoom will see when that person's log is in using that account. They have to use that email address account, that they are the host, and it will ask them if they want to start the meeting. They say yes, and then everybody else can come in. So if you do allow participants to join anytime and give the registered email address of a user within our corporate account or someone who has a free basic account, they can start that meeting. You do not have to be there. So this is how you would set up those meeting spaces that we used to have in Life Size, that all the groups just randomly use, some Lake Carmelite groups and parish groups and school groups. And then you would say save, and it would effectively create the meeting over here. Now I'm going to jump back into this one just so you can see that it has created it. It's another test one that I had created. But when you click on this, the meeting that you just created or that you're setting up, you'll notice underneath Start, Copy, Edit, and Delete, you have Show Meeting Invitation. You can copy the invitation just like we did before, go to an email, paste it in, they'll get everything. Sometimes it's nicer to just show the meeting invitation and only copy the relevant parts. So maybe you only want this much, which is the who's inviting them, what the link is, the meeting ID and passcode in case they need it, and a couple of phone numbers in case they need to dial in. Instead of all this extra stuff. You can send all of this, but it's a lot. So you can either copy invitation, it'll copy all of that, or you can go in and just grab the relevant parts that you want to send off to people. And that's how they would then connect to your meeting. So now I'm going to start a meeting. I'm going to do a personal meeting just to make this a little bit simpler. So I'm going to hit new meeting, and what's going to pop up on my screen is my end. Now, my camera, again, is not on. I don't want a picture of me inside a picture of me. So this is my camera off, and it's showing my little icon, my little profile picture. I'm also going to leave my microphone off so that we don't get feedback loop of me talking on top of me talking. But you would obviously, when the meeting started, want to turn on your camera and microphone. Now, I've got two others, people that are going to jump into this meeting. So they're going to go ahead and jump in now so that we can see some other functions. And then I'll also be able to show you one of their screens as they do this. So they're putting in their meeting code and passcode. Okay, so one of them has just joined and is connecting their audio. You guys go ahead and be on mute. Just so we don't run into issues with loopback. So this would be my image here, and these are the other two participants. You can switch views. Typically, I would say you would want to be in speaker view. And if you look up in the top right here, you have speaker and gallery. What speaker view does is whoever talks, their image jumps to the large portion. If you had it set up for dual monitor use, it would jump to that other monitor. Something else to note, when you're in a meeting, if you need someone else to join, you can always click this little green thing up here, and here's the link that you would send them. So if you realize, oh, we need someone else in the meeting, you can go in here, copy that link, and then send them that link so that they have it, so that they can join in. You'll always see how many participants you have here. So if you hit participants, you can see your list of participants. You as the host can unmute and adjust cameras and kick people out and all that kinds of thing. From in this participants window, you can also adjust on the fly if you want to mute new people as they enter, if you want to allow participants to unmute themselves or not. Sometimes in a webinar or a conference, you would want to uncheck that so that they could not unmute themselves. Play a sound when someone enters or leaves so that you're aware when someone is entering or leaving the room. You could immediately enable a waiting room. If you suddenly decided something was going on and you didn't want people interrupting it, you could enable the waiting room, and then when things had moved on to the next phase, you could go, it would show the waiting room up here, and you could then allow them in. And you can lock the meeting so that no one else can get in. The other thing you can do with your participants is you can chat. If I hit chat, I can send a message out to everyone, or I can send a message to any individual in the meeting. Now, what they are seeing on their screen, and I'm going to pull up another person over here. So in the bottom left of my screen now, what you're seeing is another participant's screen. So James, if you go down and make your little bar show down there, and maybe hit participants. So see, he sees the same thing. It's kind of tiny down there, but you can see that it was basically the same thing that I saw. Just where I have the ability to mute and unmute because I'm the host, he does not have those particular abilities. Okay, go ahead and close that one. Okay, now I'm going to share something. I have to find something to share because I'm kind of using all my screens. So I am going to minimize this, and I'm going to start up a web browser, and I'm going to go to, I guess that's fine, I'm on Google. So I'm going to do share on my screen, and now you see that I'm sharing my screen. You see in his screen, well, what he sees right now is whoever it thinks is talking, and me, up in the top right. So when I do share my screen, and I'm going to choose that I have the option to share my whole monitor, so that no matter what happens on that monitor, they'll see, or share a particular program. So I'm going to share just my browser. So even if I minimize my browser, they won't see anything behind it. If I'm going to show a video of some sort, anything of that nature, then what I'm also going to do is optimize for video and sound. That will cause the video and sound to transmit a different way through for them. So I'm going to do that, optimize, share. I'm going to hit share. Now, since I only shared the browser, I can actually pull up other things in front of it on my screen, which you don't see, but he's still seeing, he's seeing a gray screen, not the browser. If I minimize that, now you should be seeing my browser again. So so you see in the bottom left of my screen, you see what he's seeing. He's seeing the little tiny Google up on his screen, and whatever I do, he's going to see me do on my browser. So that's how I share a screen. I just hit the share. Then at the bottom of my screen, and again, it's not letting you see this, but this gray bar down here is I can hit stop share, and then you'll see it switches back, and now he is seeing what he was seeing before, just all of us. So I can always hit share screen, share out. It kind of takes over his screen, pushes everybody else off to the side, and then when I stop sharing, it goes back. A couple other things I can do. Again, here is the record button. If I wanted to record a meeting, I could hit that. It will ask if I want to record it to the computer or the cloud. You're welcome to do either. We can only record so much to the cloud. You can record straight to your computer. It'll make a video file, ask you where you want to save it. We do have breakout rooms. You can create those on the fly. So if you're in a meeting and decide you need breakout rooms, you can decide how many breakout rooms you want. if you want the system to automatically assign people to rooms when you open them, if you want to manually place people in rooms, or if you want to let participants choose, which is typically what we use. If you do automatically assign, you can see that down at the bottom, it's showing me we have 2 participants. So it's not going to count me as the host. So if I create 2 rooms, it says we only have 1 person per room. If I create 3 rooms, it says you might have a room with 0 people. So it kind of gives you an idea based on how many people are in the room of how it's going to be broken up. And then, of course, the choose automatically and assign manually. I'm going to do the assign manually, let participants choose, create 2 rooms, and create these. And you'll see in here, once I haven't activated the rooms yet, I've just created them. If I hit options, I have allow participants to choose room, because that's what I chose on the first screen. Allow participants to return to the main session at any time, so they can leave the breakout room before the breakout room closes. Breakout rooms close automatically. You can set a timer so that you don't have to be watching the time. And how much heads up do you want to give them? So I'm going to open these rooms, and then I'm going to show you the other person's screen. So James, go ahead and hit breakout rooms, and you'll see that he gets room 1 and room 2. So James maybe join room 1 and Tina join room 2. And you'll see that each person, so now James is using my account, so it says KJ Pino, but you can see that James moved into room 1 and Tina moved into room 2. I can broadcast a message to all of them. And when I do that, did it pop up top? Okay, so it popped up, that little blue thing on the top of his screen is the message that popped up here. I can do a longer message. This is a longer message, and it will go through now. So boom, it puts that on the top of the screen, so everybody gets that little message. And when I close the rooms, you'll see that a little message pops up that the breakout rooms will close. It's saying that they're going to close in 55 seconds. It always gives a 60-second warning. And when that counts down, it will close him out of the room. The rooms will shut down and everybody will come back to the main room. Can you leave now? Will it let you? Yeah, because I didn't make you stay. Okay, so he is now leaving the breakout room. Tina can go ahead and leave the breakout room. And then everybody will, now you'll see everybody is back here on my screen. We're all back out in the main session room. You can send little reactions. You can request, if you've got it set up, there's ways to offer remote support through this. Again, that's something we can go over if you were interested in that. When you're ready to end the meeting, you're going to go to end, and you'll get a couple of different options. Oh, one more thing you can do with participants, I guess, before we do that. You, as the, oh, and Tina has raised her hand. So participants have the opportunity to raise their hand to ask a question. You can then either unmute them and have them ask their question, or ignore them and lower their hand. You can. Sometimes you'll want things through the chat. Sometimes you'll want people to raise their hand so that they can speak and come up. That's kind of up to you as the moderator. Something else you can do, if you want someone to constantly be on the screen, they're going to talk, they're going to give a presentation, and you don't want, if someone else makes a noise, for them to move, and you don't want to worry that someone has unmuted themselves, you can spotlight for everyone. Once you spotlight someone for everyone, they will stay big on the screen. They are the presenter, they are the speaker. You always have the options to remove that spotlight. You also can spotlight for everyone and add to spotlight, and you can keep adding to spotlight and adding to spotlight and have multiple people up on the screen. You can also make someone a co-host. So if I were to make James, although it says KJ Pino, a co-host, now James will have on his screen a lot of the options that I have as a host, to mute participants, to unmute participants, to allow people in and out of the waiting room, to kick people out, a lot to manage breakout rooms, to manage chats to everyone. He'll have all those capabilities, which means if I leave the meeting, James is in charge, because I have made him a co-host. So if I'm in a meeting and I need to leave for some reason, and I'm the only host, it's a good idea to make someone else a co-host, or literally elevate that person to host, straight out host, so they can do everything. Co-hosts can do most things, hosts can do everything. So you can elevate them to a host, and then you can leave the meeting. As long as you're host, you can end meeting for all, and that kicks everybody out. And you'll notice James is back at his login screen because I closed the meeting, so nobody's left in there. So those are kind of the basics: how to get into the account, how to do a couple little configuration things, set up your private meeting room, set up one-time or recurring meetings, how to start a meeting, allow people into a meeting, invite people to a meeting and allow people into a meeting, host a meeting, use breakout rooms and some of the other features in the meeting, and end a meeting. So hopefully that helped. If you have any other questions, I'll do a couple more of these on some of the advanced features. And of course, you can always give me a call. Thank you.